Alright, so picture this. The year 2000, PlayStation 1 controller in my tiny hands, and I'm having my first exposure to stealth in video games. It's a Konami game, but instead of infiltrating Shadow Moses, I'm trying to cause havoc in Whoville.
Right here.
Yeah, my first experience with stealth was The Grinch, the one that was loosely tied into the Jim Carrey movie. Sure, it was more of a collectathon than a proper stealth game, but it had moments. Guard evasion, camera avoidance, my first taste of what, in a sense, was a sneaking mission. Naive and headstrong, I charged in, triggering the alarm, lesson learned. But even after learning what the game was asking of me, it was still a disaster. It was a mess of a game with a detection system that just sucked. As an 8-year-old, games were about simple fun. This though, it felt like I was being punished for playing. I just wanted to run around as the funny little man on the TV, and I was being told that I was doing it wrong. Looking back, the game was a mess. But at the time, I wasn't ready for a game that demanded anything more than just simple mindlessness from me. It was a weird way to be introduced to what would become one of my favorite types of games. Itself, though, it wasn't doing much of what I grew to love about the genre. Great stealth games create a living world through dynamic AI and shifting awareness. It's the thrill of manipulating that system, not just reacting to it. That early experience with the Grinch's stealth sections was flawed. It didn't implement any of what made stealth interesting. The genre would mature into sandboxes where player actions reshape the game world, going beyond this simple stealth. And even back then, ironically, Konami themselves were already pushing these boundaries with Metal Gear Solid. Think about it. Enemy awareness. We know they're not really sentient, but the illusion is key. They're just walking different loops, but by switching between different states, they feel like they're reacting to your behavior. They're supposed to feel alive, like they're actually trying to survive, and that's where the magic is. On top of that, there's the manipulation of the environment, turning off the lights, setting traps, creating distractions. It's like being a puppet master setting the stage and pulling the strings from behind the scenes. It's not just about simply avoiding detection, it's about actively shaping the game world to your advantage. It's this dynamic relationship between the player and the game that makes stealth and reactive genres like the immersive sims so compelling. You're not just playing through the game, you're playing with the game. Experimenting with its systems, finding creative ways to exploit its mechanics. It satisfies an urge for control, a complex puzzle with a thrill of risk. That heart-pounding moment when you're just inches away from being spotted, the rush of adrenaline as you slip past the guard's line of sight. That's a psychological hook that's probably vestigial from the days of hiding in the shadows or being taken out by a predator. It's about the feeling of being one step ahead. Ultimately, stealth games turn us into strategists and problem solvers. Alright, I'm gonna skim through some of stealth game history. So way back in the day, stealth was pretty basic. Think elevator action or Castle Wolfenstein. Simple line-of-sight stuff, basic stealth. But then jump forward to Metal Gear on the MSX and later on the NES, the MSX hardware limited processing and enemy counts, making run and gun impractical. So Kojima designed Metal Gear to emphasize evasion over direct combat. Suddenly, it wasn't just about shooting everything in sight, and if you went in guns blazing like it was Contra, you were gonna have a bad time. It forced players to slow down, observe, and strategize. That was a huge shift, the moment that we started thinking of enemies as more than just targets to be taken out. Then take another leap forward to 1998, the golden year of stealth. Metal Gear Solid, of course, blew minds, building on Metal Gear and more specifically Metal Gear 2's approach. But it wasn't the only game taking stealth strides in 1998. Thief the Dark Project was a game changer in the realm of stealth and by extension the immersive sim genre. Like Metal Gear, you were sneaking around, but you also had to be smart about the environment, using light and shadow to your advantage. It turned its game world into a playground for experimentation. Immersive sims and stealth games are cousins, both built on the foundation of dynamic states. And again, you're not just playing through a level, you're playing with the level. Thief is where that sense of agency really started to take focus. That's the legacy of those early stealth games, the evolution from simple evasion to complex clockwork worlds. And it's all driven by the core principle of dynamic world states, that being the heart of the genre and the reason why I fell in love with stealth games. Alright, let's move forward again to where stealth has become its own really distinct market. The Splinter Cell and Hitman series both took a stealth formula and gave it their own spin. Splinter Cell is all about high-tech gadgets and tactical espionage, turning you into a digital ghost. Not completely unlike Metal Gear Solid, but from a more Western Tom Clancy angle. You used your tools at your disposal to slip past defenses while still having Dad's bookshelf vibes. Hitman, on the other hand, focused on social stealth, letting you blend in with crowds and manipulate things from within. It was about social engineering to take out your targets. But both games gave you options, letting you decide how to approach each situation. Then jump forward yet again to the Dishonored series, and I gotta be honest, I didn't really click with them when I first played through them. They were an attempt to make a series in the vein of the first Thief games, but I was impatient and I played through them like they were action games because they totally let me. But I was missing the point. Years later, I went back through the series again because I had this nagging feeling that there was something special there that I just brushed past. This time, what I did was I did silent playthroughs, and by doing so, I fell in love with all of the series' powers and its ways to approach each objective. The powers were extensions of the stealth mechanics, tools for creative problem solving that I just love to mess around with. Blink being the standout power of the franchise that lets you teleport around, zipping past obstacles and guards, and then there was Possession that lets you infiltrate enemy lines from inside, not entirely unlike Hitman, but the most useful thing here wasn't to take over other people, which you could, but it was to take over the rats that infested the city. Playing through the series, I finally understood how all of the pieces fit together, and how the game encouraged a thoughtful, deliberate approach. Those playthroughs really primed me for Arcane's next immersive sim, Deathloop. And damn, when that game came out, it hooked me like few other games do. It took the best parts of Dishonored and built on them with a cool time-looping structure that turned the levels into puzzle boxes that I ended up getting very familiar with in each of their permutations throughout a cycle. It was like a playground for experimentation where you could try different approaches and see how they affected the outcome. It was just a total masterclass in dynamic systems. And due to its premise and presentation, it became explicitly about seeing the clockwork nature of it all. But instead of ruining that illusion that these kinds of immersive sim games attempt to create, it simply allowed you to appreciate them for what they are when all was laid out plain to see. Games with a stealth focus are all about player agency, and giving you the tools and letting you decide how to use them. And that's why I continue to be absolutely captivated by them. They're just not like other types of games. They're opportunities to become a strategist in real time from a perspective of somebody who's in the shit. The stealth genre is always evolving. Look at Assassin's Creed, Gunpoint, Deus Ex, The Last of Us. They all sprinkle stealth into their gameplay, but each with a unique flavor. They give you the freedom to play your way, whether it's blending into crowds, hacking security systems, or scavenging for resources in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. Looking forward to the future, there are rumors for the next Half-Life game, and the common understanding is that Valve is only so stingy with releasing Half-Life games because they only want to put one out when there's some big leap in technology that they want to showcase. And the current rumors are that one of the feathers in the next Half-Life game's cap is going to be next-generation NPC and enemy AI systems. And I'm just talking about traditional gameplay type AI here, not generative, so don't get worried about that. But funnily enough, one of the rumors about the AI systems is that it can smell and react to that smell. That might sound really specific and odd, but I think if that's one of their considerations, then what they're working on could be some real next level stuff, especially for when it comes to immersive sim and stealth gameplay. This kind of AI could totally shake things up, deepening the worlds that are already so much fun to poke at. And so those are my scattered thoughts on stealth games and their history. I'm a huge fan of the genre's sandbox nature, where you can really create your own fun. And of course, I know I breezed past a ton of classics and pivotal moments in stealth game history, so if you have any stealth gems that you want to share, or just want to discuss the genre, please leave a comment. And if you enjoyed the video, do all the YouTube-y stuff by subscribing and sharing it around. It really does help me out a lot. Anyway, thank you for watching. Oh, and surprisingly, I managed to talk about stealth this long without mentioning the term emergent gameplay. That was not intentional, but yeah, I somehow, yeah.